Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. This video today is going to be where we go through, you, I, the Twitch chat, and everyone listening to this, where we go through the Regiment of Renown that you can get in the Mad King Rises. And this Regiment of Renown we're going to be talking about is the one for the Flesh Eater Courts faction, the Summer King's Entourage, which is all to do with Ushoran. So Regiments of Renown, if this is the first time you've ever listened to me talk about them, are like kind of snapshots of what an army may look like, a small kind of collection of units and models that you can include in other armies. So if you were playing, for instance, a Nighthaunt army, you would be able to include this army inside of it. However, if you were playing Flesh Eater Courts, you can't take this Regiment of Renown inside of it. It's kind of odd. So it's a Regiment of Renown that you would hire in. Think of them as like mercenaries or something like that. You know, an entourage is what you get. So yeah, a Regiment of Renown. And this is the Summer King's Entourage. The story behind this is that effectively in the Mad King Rises, Nagash is pitting all of his lieutenants against each other, kind of like a really bad manager that instead of making all of his lieutenants and all of his people who work for him and raising them up and making them learn new skills, instead he's making them cross-compete with each other so eventually he can downsize the death department to smaller size. I don't really know why he's doing it, but if I'm honest, and again, this is going to be a real problem for YouTube and all those other things, but Nagash is just a dick. So he's just doing dickhead things. That's what he does. And I'm not really sure if you all agree with me, but effectively he is that, as most upper managers are. Anyway, so if we go and look at the Summer King's Entourage, we can see that it consists of the good man himself, Ushoran, the Mortarch of Delusion, and then 10 Crypt Guard and 3 Morbeg Knights. So you get some abilities for this unit. Don't forget, when you write this unit down, when you write this kind of regiment down, in your army list, you have to pay points for the whole lot, and this comes out at 670 points. If you were to take the individual units, the units themselves would cost 750 points. So you're saving about 80 points on having this as a regiment in an army versus if you were to buy it inside of its own army, which is kind of interesting. Okay, so the first ability that you get is Deathless Retainers, and this allows the unit to have a ward save of 6+. So everyone in the unit has a ward save of 6+. This is unfortunately a little bit, it's almost like the writers didn't remember that Ushoran himself has a 5-up ward save, and the Crypt Guard themselves have a 5-up ward save. So this is only going to affect the Morbeg Knights, who have a 6-up ward save. So it's actually worse for both the two of the units out of here, so seems a little bit redundant, but there we go. Anyway, they've also got the Maddening Radiance. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of melee weapons used by units in this Regiment of Renown while they're wholly within 12 inches of Ushoran in this regiment. This is pretty good because this means Ushoran, the Crypt Guard, and the Morbeg Knights are all going to have +1 attack, which feels nice. You don't have to do anything like you do in the Flesh Eater Courts army to build up any points to do this. It's just flat, everyone gets +1 to their attacks characteristic, which is great. So it's especially good on the Morbeg Knights because they have 2 different attack profiles, so you're going to get twice the value out of it. Then you've got Summon the Deluded Throngs, which is honestly what I call live streaming on Twitch. Twitch burn. Which is at the end of the movement phase, if the Ushoran is in this Regiment of Renown on the battlefield, you can pick one Serfs or Knights unit in this regiment, which is both of the two. Yeah. And then add a replacement unit identical to that unit in your army. Replacement units must be set up wholly within 6 inches of the battlefield edge and more than 9 inches from one enemy unit. Each destroyed unit can only be replaced once, and replaced units themselves cannot be replaced. Okay, so this is pretty simple. If you lose the Crypt Guard, you're going to get all the Crypt Guard back once per game. If you lose the Morbeg Knights, you're going to get the whole unit back once per game. So actually, this is even more effective than its 670 points cost value that you're seeing, because you're going to be able to get these guys back. So you've got Ushoran and 2 other units, or basically 4 units on the board, which is, I think, very cool. So that's wildly effective, especially if you compare it to something like Linda, which isn't that strong. But Manfred's teleport's pretty big in his subfactions. It's pretty good. So what are the units that you take inside of this? Well, let's start out with the big man himself, Ushoran. And he is very good. 16 wounds with a 4-up armor save and an inbuilt 5-up ward save is super, super strong. He's a beat stick in combat with 3 attacks, but if he's near himself in this regiment, which he will be, it's 4 attacks, 3s and 2s, Ren 2, D3 plus 3 damage. He also has 10 attacks for his Monstrous Claws, which are 3s and 3s, Rend 1, damage 2. Yikes. So good. That's just an amazing profile. All for the low cost in this regiment. He is also a 2-cast wizard, as if you didn't need any more reasons to take him. So being able to cast a Mystic Shield on himself or his other units is very good. I'd say he's probably always going to be casting Mystic Shield on himself. He's also got access to his own spell called the Glimpse of Delusion, which is cast on a 7, a range of 18 inches. You pick an enemy model within range of the caster, then pick one melee weapon that model is armed with, and pick one other enemy unit in range. That enemy model immediately makes combat attacks with that weapon, targeting that other enemy unit. So if you get near a Frostlord and Stonehorn, you can use his tusks to attack another unit nearby, which I think is great. You have a Durthu, get him to attack someone nearby. It's an amazing spell. It's very, very good. As well, to add to the survivability of Ushoran, should talk about that. As well as having a 5-up ward save in each hero phase of your hero phases, you can heal 2d3 wounds to him, which on top of obviously like heroic actions for heals, means that this guy's going to heal a lot. So he's going to be very survivable in my opinion, which is good. It's not as good as the hunger that you get for vampires, but it's still really, really not bad. Which is good. 2 of the rules, Epicenter of Delusion and the Carrion King, neither of which are going to affect the units in this regiment because they're only rules that apply if he's in a Flesh-Eater Courts army. However, the last rule, Shroud Cage Fragment, is pretty good. At the start of the combat phase, you subtract 1 from the Bravery characteristic of each enemy unit within 3 inches of this unit, and at the end of the battle, you roll 2d6. Each enemy unit within 1 inch of this unit. If the result is higher than the Bravery characteristic, the unit strikes last. So that -1 is going to stack in each combat phase. So you're going to really be able to reduce the Bravery of enemy units. And the strike last effect is also going to be very effective because he's going to be fighting, the units inside of his regiment are going to be fighting, and probably any units you're fighting with are also going to be fighting, which is good. The other units that you get inside here are Crypt Guard, which is 10 models with a 5-up save, and they have a 5-up ward save built in, which is very, very good. They're an okay combat profile with 2 attacks, but near Ushoran it's going to be 3 attacks. 3s, Rend 1, damage 3. So it's going to be 30 attacks that you're going to throw out at someone, which feels very good. They automatically add +1 to their charge rolls and their run rolls because of the musician. And they halve the number of models that run away thanks to their battle standard bearer. And then finally, if any wounds caused by this unit's attacks are allocated to enemy units, that enemy unit cannot issue or receive commands until the end of the turn. So in combat, if this unit just wounds a unit, they're not going to be able to receive Inspiring Presence, which is very strong. Very, very strong. So that's pretty great to have in there as well. We love that. And then we have the Morbeg Knights, who are a unit of 3 wounds each on a 4-up save, so 9 wounds on a 4-up save. And they have a pretty good lance attack, which gets better when they charge in, which is 2 attacks, 3s, Rend 1, damage 2, but it's going to be 3 attacks thanks to Ushoran. And then the Vicious Claws and Teeth from the Mount are 3 attacks, which will be 4 attacks thanks to Ushoran, 3s and 3s, Rend 1, damage 2. A lot of attacks. They auto add +1 to their charge. If they charge in, each one of these models is going to count for 3 on an objective versus counting as 1 on the turn in which they charge, thanks to the standard bearer. When they charge in, they have a Shrieking Charge, which is they pick an enemy unit within 1 inch after they make a charge move. That enemy unit cannot do Unleash Hell. In addition, roll 1 dice for each model that's within 1 inch of this enemy unit, and a 4+, they suffer D3 mortal wounds. So some armies really build themselves around being able to do a very aggressive Unleash Hell. Cities of Sigmar is a good example. Having a load of Reavers that you would get in a 9-net Deepkin army. Also one of those things, unit of 30, load of Blissbarb Archers. These guys can just shut that down, which is very good. And lastly, they have the Predator's Pounce, which is this unit can retreat and still charge later in the turn. So as a regiment, the constitute parts of the regiment, so Ushoran, Morbeg Knights, and the Crypt Guard, are all great. They all do very effective things in-game that are very, very good. You can return the Morbeg Knights and the Crypt Guard once per game because of Ushoran, which is also great as well. And they're all much better in combat thanks to the Maddening Radiance. So I don't see why you wouldn't want to take this in an army that isn't performing very well like Nighthaunt and just make that army have a big monster. Nighthaunt really suffer for not having a monster, which I think is fun. There's also some cool combos. It's pretty cheap. I wonder if there's the potential in some of the armies to have this and Nagash in the army as well, which I think would be very, very fun. Also, I think this would be cool in something like Soulblight Gravelords, who have their own recursion mechanics. So now you have two different. I'm bringing back some, in Soulblight Gravelords. I'm bringing back some Soulblight Gravelords on one objective, and I'm bringing back my slain Flesh Eater Corpse models in another section of the board, which is going to be a real problem for your army. Even you could see some fun stuff with having them inside an OCR Bone Reaper's army, where you could use Arcan to combo with his spell increase range on Ushoran, which would be fun as well. So a load of really fun, interesting combinations, but mainly because the parts of this regiment are super strong and they're going to work really well with all the other units as well. So just great. Really good. Love to know what you think. Leave me some comments in the YouTubes, etc. Thank you to everyone who has watched this. Do leave comments, like, and subscribe. Thanks to everyone on Patreon. You're great. And just let me know what you think. Are you going to run it? You're not going to run it? You're going to accidentally pick up Ushoran? Let me know. We'll see.